Someone once told me a man can never break your heart as much as your own child can. I never believed until I sat alone at my husband's funeral, not one of his 9 children in sight. I understood perfectly then. My name's Doreen, and for 52 years I was a wife to Harold. We raised 9 children together in a home we built with our bare hands, prayers, and the kind of sacrifices that age you twice as fast. He worked, harder than any man I've ever known, missed holidays, ate cold dinners, went without, just so they never had to. We grew up in broken families and always swore to give our children better lives than we had. Me? I gave them my whole damn life. Held their hands when they were afraid of monsters, stayed up sewing costumes, baking cupcakes for school fairs. We did it all for them, every single thing. And I loved every second of it. I finally had the big, happy family I dreamt of having as a kid. But kids forget. You grow them, loving them unconditionally, but later realize their love for you is conditional. All it took was one mistake. Harold called the cops on our eldest son, who had begun to spiral and started making a habit out of making bad decisions. He stole, he got in fights, and he even started dealing drugs. We gave him as much chances as we could give, but no amount of talking would get him to stop what he was doing. When he came to our home demanding money from us for the umpteenth time, on the verge of getting violent, Harold finally decided to call the cops. He did it with a heavy heart, tears in his eyes, but he wanted to teach our boy a lesson. And I agreed. That was it. Suddenly, my husband was the bad guy. Said he was controlling, unforgiving, and the worst father to exist. They all took their brother's side, never taking into account how much we suffered from the hands of our eldest son. It's amazing how fast they rewrote history when it stopped being convenient to remember who paid their college fees and bailed them out of their first messes. Our son only stayed in jail for a few days before the court ordered rehabilitation. It was the best thing for him, but none of them saw that. And when Harold got sick, when the cancer began eating him alive from the inside, they were nowhere. He asked for them. Even when his body failed, his voice weak and trembling, he still hoped, still loved them. God help me, I wanted to stop him from hoping. But you can't kill hope in a man like Harold, not until the last breath leaves him. And when that breath came, it was only me beside him. I was the one who wiped his tears. I was the one who held his hand and told him he was not alone, even though, in a way, he was. I kept looking around to see if any of our children would show up once word got out, but none. Not one. 9 children, and no one came to tell their father goodbye. The ache I felt that day was so intense, I felt like I wouldn't be far behind Harold. The funeral was a cold, grey morning. I sat on the front pew of a full church, staring at 9 reserved seats. Not a single one filled. Everyone else was there. Harold was loved by many, and yet the people he loved the most didn't show up. It hurt so much, my body felt numb. That was when something in me snapped. I went home and packed up everything. All the family heirlooms, the photos, the letters, the baby shoes, and first report cards. Every single thing they ever gave us, or we gave them. I loaded it all into the backyard fire pit and watched it burn. Every piece of evidence that they'd ever been loved, gone in smoke. Then I did something worse. I took Harold's ashes, not to some peaceful resting place, but to each of their homes, one by one. I left a small portion at their doorsteps, in carefully labelled jars. No note, just their name and the date of his funeral. A silent reminder of what they missed. A ghost they can't bury. Harold didn't deserve it. He worked himself to the bone to make those kids happy. He barely raised his voice at them, even when they were at their worst. I was the disciplinarian. Whenever I scolded them, Harold was always the one to go comfort them regardless, sneak them treats and lighten the mood. He was a gem, a 1 in a million. Some of them tried to call after that. I didn't answer. I suppose seeing their father's ashes at their doorsteps broke something inside them. Good. I became the villain they'd wanted us to be so badly. My heart was as cold as ice. The love of my life was gone, died heartbroken. And that broke me. But the final act, that was the one that made sure they'd feel it in their bones. You see, Harold wrote a letter to each child when he got sick. I found dozens of them in his drawer, sealed and dated, never sent. Apologies. Encouragement. Memories of their childhood. Little stories I'd forgotten myself. I had copies made, and I mailed them all, posthumously. They arrived at their houses just days after I dropped off the ashes. Imagine that, getting your father's final words after you ignored his death, reading the love he still had for you while knowing you never even showed up to say goodbye. I don't know what that did to them, and I don't care. But I like to think it haunts them. I like to imagine they sit with those letters at night, wondering who they've become. I like to believe the silence in their homes now echoes just a little louder. Let them carry that. Because Harold didn't deserve to be buried without the family he worked so hard to preserve. Now, it's been 2 years. I sold the house and was now living in a peaceful little town in the Caribbean where it was warm and peaceful, beautiful beaches and amazing views. I get missed calls and text messages from the kids every now and then, begging me for their forgiveness, telling me how sorry they were. I ignored everyone. Each message pushed me closer and closer to changing my will, which I eventually did. None of what I had left on this earth would be theirs in the end. I wouldn't have it. My heart was still not thawed. Every now and then, Harold's face pops up in my memory, and my heart aches all over again. I don't know how much time I have left on this earth, and I don't think I'll ever forgive my kids for what they did. I don't know, but right now all I could think about was a man who sacrificed everything to get nothing in the end. I couldn't forget that. Ever.